What is the criminalization of homelessness?
I'm so glad you asked this question as a critical criminologist. So I appreciate you putting this in. It doesn't get talked about enough, so I was really grateful to see that. The criminalization of homelessness refers to the ways that people who are experiencing homelessness become involved in the criminal justice system, largely for activities that housed people wouldn't be involved with the criminal justice system. So we see that people who are experiencing homelessness face more police interaction and more criminal justice involvement than their housed counterparts. And so this is when very mundane activities, what we call activities of living, become criminalized for people experiencing homelessness. So this could be, for example, loitering. So I have personally been waiting for a friend, and I've been standing on the sidewalk for 15 minutes while my friend was late, and nobody comes up to me and asks me to move along or threatens to give me a ticket for being there. But somebody who's experiencing homelessness can absolutely have that experience. It can be things like public intoxication. We're not going to raise hands here, but we can think about how many people may have left a bar in their lives at 1 a.m. Intoxicated. And there's never a fear that they're going to be stopped by the police for being intoxicated in public. But that is an absolute real fear that people experiencing homelessness experience all the time. We can think about public urination. While many of us have places to go to be able to use the bathroom, there are lots of people who are denied access to public washrooms. And so we've seen that become even worse during the COVID-19 pandemic, when things were locked down. Not only were public washrooms locked down, but now the washrooms in businesses were locked down too, right? So worst case scenario, I can go buy myself a Timmy's and I'll be able to use their bathroom, right? If I needed to use the bathroom. That might not be an option for some people experiencing homelessness, or even if they can buy that small coffee so that they can use the bathroom, they might still not be allowed in. And so then when we deny them, when we close door after door after door to a publicly accessible washroom, then we go and criminalize them for when they have nowhere else to go to the bathroom. And so this is what we're talking about when we talk about the criminalization of homelessness. We use the criminal justice system as a tool to manage homelessness. And it is an inefficient and unethical tool, but we use it all the time. And I think that's most clearly highlighted when we think about the fines that people pay for panhandling. So in Ontario and in British Columbia, we have provincial laws called the Safe Streets Act, which prohibits aggressive panhandling or panhandling in certain locations, like near a bus stop, near an ATM, things like that. But even beyond that, there are cities across the country who have initiated bylaws. So even if it's not provincial legislation, each city says, okay, well, you're not allowed to panhandle at all or in these certain locations. And what happens if somebody who's experiencing homelessness, a police officer walks by and they are charged with panhandling, they get a fine. So just think about what that means. We fine somebody for being so poor that they have to ask people for money. It's so ridiculous that it's almost funny if it wasn't so heartbreaking, because the effects of ticket after ticket after ticket are truly detrimental. It can have a huge impact on people's ability to access social housing because now they have this very poor credit rating. It can lead to incarceration for failure to appear and things like that. So it's devastating, the impacts that this criminalization of homelessness can have on people. But we continue to see it being used in cities across the country as a way of managing homelessness, but it's not really managing at all. It's actually making things worse, not better.
When you think of the cost of policing and having police officers spending time wandering around ticketing folks that have no money, it's ridiculous.
It defies common sense. And I think that's what is so frustrating to me is I actually don't know how to fight against it, because it's like fighting against somebody who's telling me the sky is green. like, it's so illogical
Mhm.
that I don't know how to reason. I don't know how to reason our way out of this one, because the criminalization of homelessness and the ticketing of homelessness specifically is purely ideological. It is purely for show. It is about showing that the cities are doing something about homelessness. What they're doing is further entrenching homelessness or forcing people to move further away from services, which in the end will make things worse for people. And it really, sorry, can I add one thing?
Absolutely.
It comes down to the criminalization of homelessness happens, Safe Streets Act happened, and the bylaws are happening because vocal members of the house community want visible homelessness to go away. They don't want to see it. They don't want to end homelessness. They're not concerned about the human suffering or the human rights violation that homelessness brings. They don't want to see it anymore. And so in that sense, ticketing homelessness or criminalizing homelessness is effective because people will be careful where they are. They will hide in alleyways. They will do all sorts of things to make sure that they don't get ticketed. They're not solving homelessness. They are making homelessness less visible for the aesthetical purposes of people who don't want to see what their society has created.
Absolutely. Absolutely.